Hey friends, today I'll tell you whether now in 2025 it's a good time or not to buy a house or apartment in Denmark. If you're thinking about buying a property here, this video will help you make a better and more informed decision. And straight on, my take is yes, it's probably a good time to buy. I think that so long as the economy keeps strong, prices will not go down. If you're thinking about buying something for the medium or to the long term, I would say go for it. And also, for context, I say this with skin in the game. I bought a new townhouse in Copenhagen in February 2025. I'm still in my original apartment, but I'll be moving to a new place after summer. So that's the second property I buy here, and again, skin in the game. That said, the future is always full of uncertainties. There's a trade war heating up, there's geopolitical uncertainty, and looks like there's chaos everywhere. So it's never a clear cut. I mean, it's not that you buy and it's 100% guaranteed that the prices will go up. But I have a lot of confidence now in the market, now that we have seen interest rates climbing over the last years, higher taxes, and still prices going up. In the rest of this video, I'll explain this take in more detail and of course answer some of your key questions on buying a property. If you're new here, my name is Mario, and on this channel I help expats in Denmark to buy a property, invest, and overall live a rich and fulfilling life here. So, I want to start with a bit of context. In 2022 and 2023, we had interest rates rising from what was before like 1% to around 5%. Now they're down to 4%-ish. It's still 4 times higher than they were during pandemic, but that cooled down the market, but then it picked up again. In early 2024, we had new property taxes kicking in. They made living in apartments in the big cities more expensive, to the tune of a few thousand krona per month at least. And every expert predicted that the market would take a big hit after that. Fix cooled down for a few months, but then when it came to the rest of 2024, things started picking up again. So now, as of I'm recording this in May 2025, prices are higher than they were at their peak before these new taxes coming in. So again, in 2025, what we see so far is that the first few months have been some of the hottest in a long time, with less properties for sale in the big cities, and also we see very record square meter prices coming up. And you can of course see this in the data, you don't need to hear it from me. So I'll show you now a graph where you can see in Copenhagen square meter prices and also properties on sale. I'll also put a link down in the description so you can actually see this in text if you want to see it in more detail, but just know that things are both, the square meter price is going up and also the number of properties on sale is quite low considering to historical standards. And when there's less things on sale means that, assuming the same amount of buyers in the market, prices are likely going to go up. And again, keep in mind, it's considerably more expensive now to buy a place than it was a few months back, just the owning of the property. Because again, when you have to pay 4 times more in interest, if you add up also the new taxes on top, it's really crazy, right? So the point question is that what keeps the market going there, right? And I would say is the fundamentals. And I'm going to explain you now the housing fundamentals. Number one is the strong economy. Denmark has weathered COVID relatively well. The government and household finances remain relatively solid, and there's a booming job market with wage growth. This is important because there's a really high correlation between economic strength and asset prices such as real estate. You also see cities like Copenhagen that are receiving thousands of highly paid expats that make a big boost with demand of mid and high-end housing. So even if these people that move into the city don't immediately buy something, maybe they rent fancy properties, and like again, when you have influx of people with money to a city, that we see it raises the prices as well. There's the whole cloud of a trade war, so let's see how the economy moves into the future. I work in Maersk, and this year started good for us, but now we don't know how it's gonna be. Probably not as good as last year. Novo Nordisk's stock is like half of what it was a year ago with the sales of the weight loss drug, and these companies have a big impact in the Danish economy, so let's see what happens. Number two is that it's still cheap to buy, or cheap in commas, to buy a property in Denmark in comparison with other countries in Europe. I can of course show you the data now in the video, but for example, when it comes to Copenhagen, that is the most expensive in Denmark by far to buy a city, to buy an apartment. When you compare it to Oslo, when you compare it to Stockholm, when you compare it to Helsinki, those places are more expensive. And when you compare to France or Switzerland, or even Amsterdam, or even other places as well, it's substantially cheaper. So for example, if you look in the graphs as well, you'd see that Copenhagen has around 58,000 to 59,000-ish square meters. That's the price in krona that you pay for a meter. In Helsinki, that's more or less the same, but in Stockholm is 76,000. What I can tell you now as well is that this gap has closed. If you look at my videos from 2021 to 2022, this gap used to be bigger, but still, like, it's closing in, but at the same time, it's still, when you compare it to peer cities, it's still cheaper in Denmark, and specifically in Copenhagen. You could also argue that because in Denmark we count in part of the advertised price of a property the corridors, more on that in my guide linked down in the video description, the square meter price is artificially low. So even then, even if you will consider, okay, we need to add 5-10 square meters more per property, it's still cheaper than it is in some of these other cities I have been telling you about. Number 3 on the fundamentals is the demand and supply imbalance. So it's very expensive to rent in Denmark, at least when you get, unless you get a really good rent control deal, and more on that in a video over here, it's really expensive. And even now, with a 4% interest rate, even now with the higher taxes, you often get a better deal by owning a place versus renting a place in terms of cash flow. Again, that depends of course on how high your rent is, how expensive of a place you get, and if you get access to the cheapest loan. But if you get access to the cheapest loans, and for example the loan that you only pay interest and you don't have to pay back the principal for at least 10 years, cash flow wise you will be better off owning a property than renting. But again, not as much as it was a few years ago because of the higher interest rates. But again, overall, it makes it interesting to buy. And that's why I bought a place in the first place, because with this apartment that I have now, I paid a lot less than I was paying in rent, just by owning the place and getting these good loans. And now I want to talk about the elephant in the room, because in Denmark, buying a property is especially good from a tax perspective. Because in terms of taxes, if you're an investor and you have capital and you want to put your money to work for you, investments in Denmark are very highly taxed, to the tune of you can pay up to 42% of the gains of your investments. And when I say the gains, that's actually not even that true, because in Denmark, most of the investments in, for example, ETFs and index funds, they are taxed directly or indirectly on unrealized gains, which makes honestly a terrible place, Denmark, to build wealth through like this investment path. Yeah, you can still do it, and there's a threshold of money that it actually makes sense to have invested when you have this activas per conto, and then like before you pay this 42%. But still, comparing to the rest of the world, Denmark is terrible when it comes to investing. So there's one exception to this investment apocalypse that we have here in Denmark, and is that housing is the one good deal in Denmark. Because the sale of your primary home is not taxed on capital gains. So let's say I bought this place, this apartment that you see here, for 5 million, and then I sell it for 8 million. So long as it was my primary property and I was living in this place, that's 3 million that will be as gains tax-free, straight to my pocket. And in other countries, you'll pay capital gains on this, meaning that you'll pay 30% of that gain you actually need to pay to the state as a tax. In Denmark, that's not the case. They tax you for everything, but not for this, which means that the best deal that you can have in Denmark, if you want to be financially independent, is likely to buy the most expensive house you can afford, and then like just pray and hope that the price of the house will go up, because that's how you really make money. And I made some videos about it where you can actually see people that bought a place 5 years ago, maybe in a project apartment in an area that was up and coming, and now they sell for 3, 4, 5 million more, and that's 5 million more in hand. That's crazy. Just 2 notes on this. In my opinion, and it's not scientific, but for sure, this drives up some of the prices, because the higher the gain tax-free that you have when you sell a property, the higher down payment you can put on to your next property. And because of the higher down payment you can put in, the higher you can bid. So it's like a virtuous circle that the more money you earn, the more you can go. And also a vicious circle if you think it in the other way, meaning that the entry into the market is now getting more expensive. But I can tell you, we have not sold this place yet, but the expectation, it would be like a really nice few million gain, and that's a big down payment I can put towards my new townhouse. So that's very nice. And that drives, I think, like this kind of keeps up the demand high. And just to clarify, because it's not that Denmark makes this out of charity or anything. Denmark taxes you heavily as a homeowner, and there are 2 taxes on homeownership, and both are relatively high. So the reason we don't pay taxes on the sale of the property is because, again, we have these 2 taxes. But in a context where the markets are up like 10% per year or even 30% over a few years, like even with those high taxes, you're still on the game. And those high taxes are still passed on to the renters if you rent. So one way or the other, you're still better off. So with that said, I think that there's a really strong fundamental to say, hey, the market might not still go up like crazy, but over the next few years, so long as the economy doesn't crash completely, you could see prices either stable or going up, because again, the fundamentals are strong. If you want to learn more about buying an apartment in Denmark, or overall how to achieve financial independence in Denmark, you should check out my new site called denmarkinvesting.com. It's just linked down in the video description. I just created it. I added my best material, including my 40-page guide on buying a house that is all free, and I have just updated that and added something on the summer houses. There's a lot more things in there, and you also get access to a lot of my best stuff in there. I also sell a course called Dream Home Denmark, where I get to the very nitty-gritty details on the buying process, like to the extreme, for those of you who really want to get into that level of detail. And also, I have a community as part of the course where you can actually interact with other people in the same situation looking for financial independence in Denmark, and also where you can send me some of the properties you're interested in, and I can give you feedback from my own experience. For whatever that's worth, people find it really valuable, so you can of course do that, and I'll give you feedback on a private video on your interested properties. That's Dream Home Denmark, again, link down in the video description. So what is my recommendation here? Should you buy? Look, I'll tell you what I have been doing, and that's better to preach you what you should do. So I'll tell you what I do, and then of course you can take that with your own feedback and with your own research, and you can say what you should do. So in February, so I will record this in May, in February I bought a townhouse in Islandsbrugge, which is in central Copenhagen. I already live in Islandsbrugge, like you can't really see the garden here because it's too light today, but I live already in Islandsbrugge. I just moved like 5-10 minutes walk from here. And we paid a lot of money for this townhouse, so it's close to 12 million. But again, we have 2 kids, we needed the space. I made a full video of experience, it's gonna be here, where I explain a bit more of my thinking process because of why I bought this place. I also think it's a good investment. I'm told that since I bought it, the place is already up, but almost like 1 million krona, which is ridiculous. I don't believe it, maybe that's what they're telling me, so they can sell this cheaper, I don't know. But again, it looks like it was a good investment. It was not the idea of buying it as an investment, but I'm always looking into the long as well. And because of that, because of my own home purchase, I have been looking into the market really closely versus the last few years. And I can tell you anecdotally some of my own reflections of the market. Over the last few months, I have seen some of the places I was interested on sold really quickly. Many were sold off market, meaning that they were never advertised for sale. So you can actually only know about these sales if you were friends with the real estate agents or you were part of their sales catalog people. And for context, I bought my townhouse off market as well. It was never advertised in Bolexiden or Boliga and all those places. It was actually because I knew the real estate agents and I knew I wanted that type of townhouse. They were calling me, hey, there's this one coming up on sale. And when there's few properties on the market, this is a good deal to do. And then, just for context, right? I have this apartment for sale now, and the prices we have advertised and the offers we have received so far are already like 10 to 15% higher than what the market looked like last year. I haven't sold yet, so maybe, I don't know, wish me luck, but we'll see how that goes. But the pulse of the market is that level, which is pretty crazy. And just to wrap up this section, it sucked for me to move from a cheap mortgage, I pay like 2% now, to actually go and pay 4%-ish and higher taxes. But again, for us it was accepting that that's the way it is and just move on. And I guess many people are doing the same thing as well. So if you're worried about those two things as well, just of course do your calculations, talk with your bank, and then you see. Now, when not to buy. In my case, I was looking for a medium to long-term home. So that's the new place. We'll live there for 3 years minimum, 5 years plus likely. While I don't know what will happen next year, what I'm not knowing how the world is going to look like in 2 years, I'm kind of confident that the prices over the next 5 years will be higher because of the fundamentals I have been just telling you about. If you're looking for something to buy for the very short term, say for 1 or 2 years, I will always be wary. You can get lucky, but the risks of a one-off crash as we had in 2022 or even like earlier this year, like before the new taxes came in, actually like year before that, like could happen. So you don't want to be stuck in that situation, but that's on me. So that's it from me, team. So what do you want to do about your own housing? Let me know down in the video description. I will also, as I said, like link down to all my best content. And if you want to hear my long reflections about the new house I bought, check down this video over here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.